Hey, what's up? You're tuned into The Cutting Room, the show where we talk to industry-leading marketing professionals about their content marketing philosophy, process, and pregame before they edit an article live. I'm your host, Tommy Walker, and we've got a very special edition today where I will be walking you through my blog research process. Now, if you are new here, please say what's up in the comments, and we will be very happy to see you. And if you are a return visitor, I'd love to know what your favorite episode has been so far. This is going to be a very interactive format today, just because it's just me. So why not ask any questions? Let's go back and forth, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so the idea today is to talk about the blog research process. And the reason I wanted to share this is because I've been getting a lot of questions about it. And the thing that I would like to share before we kind of really dive deep into it is to say this is the research process that I have used and has evolved over time for companies like Shopify Plus, Conversion XL, QuickBooks, some of the stuff that I've been doing with my client LinkedIn, and a number of other companies. And the reason why I wanted to share this is because I think that it can help us all create a little bit better content, and it's used to really help us do a good job, right? Understand who our readers are, and give people what they need when they search. Now, I want to give a few caveats about this. This research process is specifically for search-oriented content. The reason I wanted to do that was because even though search-oriented content is not necessarily my favorite, it is a way to give people what they want as a front door. And it is a front door to the stuff that they didn't know that they needed. So, it's a way to give people what they want and a front door to the stuff that they didn't know they needed, right? We can take this opportunity to give people the thing that they're searching for and capture that demand and then bring them further into the blog and create demand around the things that we want. Hey, how's it going? So I think that's kind of the first thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to search-oriented content, my goal is not necessarily just to give people the answer that they're looking for so they can go away. My goal is to get them opening 15 different tabs, and by the time that they're done, be late to their next meeting, right? I want to get people so engrossed and have them really, really get into the stuff that we're doing. And I think the only way to do that is with a lot of upfront research. Second caveat, it takes an incredible amount of time to do this the way that I do it. And I highly recommend if you have the ability to bring someone on to help with this research process, that's great. You don't have to, but you'll see there are some tools that will help mitigate it. I will show you some of those as we're going along. I'll go through my tool stack, and you'll be able to do a lot even if your time is constricted. And then 3, this is an ever-evolving process. If I were to do this episode a year ago, it would have been very different from now. And a year from now, it will probably be a little different as things evolve and tools change and processes change and what people are looking for changes. So that's really that. I would love to learn, before I really jump into it, what it is that you're hoping to expect to get out of this episode and one of the things that trips you up in your research process. And any questions that you might have right now, now is the time to ask, and then I will jump straight into it. Going once, going twice. All right, so we're going to just jump in, and I'm going to show you what the end result is of what this looks like first. So this is what a brief of mine ends up looking like. So we've got the title, right, or the topic, rather, of the article that we're creating. We talk about the type of article, the content objective. So in this case, it's educate on customer lifetime value, where it fits with other business metrics, how to calculate. And we really just define this stuff up front. We want to define what the target audience is up front. We go after the primary keywords and the secondary keywords, right? So we're looking at the search value. This isn't going to be anything that's very different from what a lot of people are doing, quite honestly. And then we're going to get into the word count here. I'll talk about this in just a minute, how we get to that and why we're looking at that. This is not an arbitrary number. It's highly calculated. Right here, we'll show the internal links. So something that I didn't used to do up front was figure out what internal links that I would want to have. And it's actually really important that we do this. For confidentiality's sake, I'm not putting that in here. But we want to know what links we're trying to drive traffic to. Again, if we're trying to get people to open up 15 tabs by the time they're done, we need to know what tabs we're going to try to get people to open. And in some cases, even the text that's going to surround that, so we can open up curiosity gaps before, so people will want to click, right? Very easy to look at this and go, there's a link. But there are really opportunities with every single link to drive action, and that's really the goal with putting these in there up front. The other part is, as time evolves, as time goes on, there are definitely blog posts that are that could be redirected to this new piece or can be consolidated. Let's take that as an opportunity here to say, like, what are we going to do with this piece in the long run? Over here, I might give high-level competitor examples. Right? And we'll dig into this a little bit further. These are ones that are of note. And then we want to answer people's questions. And these are taken from a number of different places. So I'll show you what that looks like. And then here's my notes on a SERP. Now, what I will do is go through every single article that shows up in the top 10 results. And generally speaking, I'm not actually doing this right here, but generally speaking, I'll make note of the 3 things I like about that piece and 3 things that I think can be improved. And you can see here 2 published. It's got the published date, the updated date, the average word count, how many images, what's the call to action, and if there are featured SERPs or anything else that's interesting. Also making note of the inbound links here. This is a fairly new Overall, this is a fairly new part of the process, keeping this meta information. And doing this multiple times, I've actually learned, I've gotten a better, stronger idea of what Google's looking for nowadays. So a lot of the things that I've been finding in the different search results are Google is looking at things that are anywhere between 3 to 5 years old in most of these cases. In the majority of cases, it's actually within the last 3 years that the thing has been updated. Makes sense if you think about their job as the way to surface the most relevant recent information. I'm looking at the word counts, which I'm also finding in this case, you can see word counts kind of don't matter as much. The top result here is 1,500 words. The second result is 2,600 words. And then we've got 1,300. And the advice that we've been kind of seeing around, or the thing that we've thought about, is more words the better. And I'm not actually seeing that a lot in some of the results. In this case, there's a little bit of a correlation, but it's not too crazy. The other thing that's really interesting is the amount of inbound links that are happening with different pieces. So we can see here, Shopify's got 178 links. Number 2 has got 68 links. And number 3 is 568 links, right? So the idea that we have to get a lot more links, and then HubSpot right here, 1,356 links. The idea that links are the end-all, be-all, not necessarily the case anymore, at least from what I'm seeing out there. Because, and if I think about it this way, when blogs were really the primary source of communication with each other, there was a point in time where social media wasn't as big as it is now, right? Hard to think about. But blogs were people's way of primarily communicating with each other. And sharing thoughts and information and resources. So at that time, the inbound linking system was a way for people to say, like, it was a vote. It's still a vote, but when you think about the amount of traffic and information that Google has on us and the way that we have ways to drive traffic nowadays, it's a little bit different from what I think. This is just my opinion. But from what I'm thinking is there is a lot of information that we have, right? From traffic sources to all the information that Google Chrome has, which has like 80% of the search engine market. There are so many different ways to drive traffic to a website now that I think my hypothesis would be that Google is looking at all of these things and going, hey, instead of going, how many links does this thing get, which at one point was the primary way of giving a vote to what was the most popular, now they're going, well, how much traffic is this thing generating on its own? And taking a lot of information in aggregate, now it can give this really strong idea of, hey, what are the best pieces to show up in our index here? In other results, right, and this is why I keep this big meta-analysis up front. In other results, I've seen things with 400 words get ranked above things that are 3,000 words with tons of more links. And I think the reason for that is the result is simply just answering the question and going after the intent, right? So this is research that I try to do up front to make sure that we kind of have a strong idea of what is what Google's looking at and what they're showing is the most valuable. You'll see here too that I'll also take interesting images that are showing up in these results. So in this case, if we're looking at the phrase customer lifetime value, HubSpot is showing up here. They have these really great images that illustrate what's going on. CleverTap also has another good one. Medium also has another one. And I'll take opportunity notes here of what I see when I read each one of these results, right? And again, I will make comments on each of these about 3 things I like, 3 things I dislike, and where are some opportunities. That's step 1. Now, one of my new favorite tools, and you've seen this if you are familiar with the show, you've seen that I've started promoting a tool called Content Harmony, and here's why, right? A big part of the research process now used to be a lot of keyword research, and I'm bouncing between a bunch of different tools. Content Harmony does a lot of this for me, and this is not supposed to be an ad for Content Harmony. This is legitimately an opportunity to show you why I like this tool so much. So first and foremost, if I'm going to look over here, right, all I have to do is click Run New Reports, and I can upload my big old keyword list in here. And then what it's going to do is when I run the report, it's going to give me a bunch of information. So in this case, you can see here I've got customer lifetime value, which is the major thing that I'm trying to go after. And we can see here the average word count. We can see what the average content score, the average links, and the average domain authority is for each one of these pieces. So we'll click into customer lifetime value, and I'll show you just exactly why I like this. So right here, it will show you the search intent, right? This is primarily a research-oriented key phrase. We can see that the SERP freshness, this is another one of those things I was just talking about. The average age of the SERP, the articles are 5 months old, right? Super important. If you've already written a piece on this, you should be refreshing it. And if you are creating a new piece on this, you actually might have a pretty solid opportunity to show up in the index, depending on how volatile it is, which I didn't show you before, but I look at the volatility of each search result as well to give me an idea if I might be able to break in or not. Okay, and then you'll see here it also has SERP features and the keyword and seasonality trends. This just kind of gives me an idea, not that I pay too much attention to keyword seasonality, but it gives me an idea if I'm going to be riding a wave or not, and where people are searching for this. Okay. Now, here's the other thing that's cool. They just, if you're familiar with tools like ClearScope, this is something where you might see this a lot. These are overlapping keywords that are in each individual piece that are showing up in the results, right? We might see customer lifetime value show up 10 times, customers 23 times, et cetera, et cetera. What's really cool about this is it gives you this really strong idea of kind of what needs to be showing up here. And then related searches, right? We can get an idea of what else we can include in this piece to make it relevant to the customer. Here's another thing. The outline, they actually just released this AI suggested headings section. So it will give you the outline, a recommended outline for the piece. And this is a aggregate of what we're seeing in the other pieces. So in this case, let's start with customer lifetime value. Here's the introduction, right? Calculating customer lifetime value, the importance of customer lifetime value. And this can be informed by that. And then what it will also do is pull out the outlines for each of the other pieces that are in the search result. So this gives you a really strong idea just at a glance of what other people are talking about. Do I use this a whole lot? Not really, but I'm starting to. I've been using the tool for a little while now, and I'm finding this very important and very valuable when I am looking at my own outline. And I think as my process evolves, I might be looking at this just a little bit more. Also questions. We see this questions right here, right? Normally in my research process before, I would look at the different questions and I would go and find people also asked and look at Quora. And you can see like, the relevant conversations that are happening around what's going on in Quora. I didn't size my screen the right way, but you can see like the questions that people are asking, the real life answers that people are giving. And Dan Pickett, for example, might be someone that I could quote and reach out to him later and say, hey, just wanted to let you know I quoted you, right? You get these real results and you can see what the actual conversation is around that. That genuinely helps with the framing and the context that I want to give in whatever piece it is that I'm writing. This one's really cool. Sources, right? This will give you the overlapping links. These are the things that everybody's linking to, so it might be interesting to look there for research. And then the top internal link targets. Now, if I go back to my Google Docs view, right, I might look at this and go, my internal links, I'll put those right there. This gives me it saves me a ton of time looking to do like the site : keyword and then see where there might be opportunities in there, right? Top government and EDU links, let's like link them to some authoritative research, and then also related news. So this is interesting because you can keep this stuff incredibly relevant by looking at things that are modern. Now, in my process, right, we kind of showed you earlier how I look at the Google Docs view, and one of the major things that I'm looking at here are the search results. All this information I'm now getting from Content Harmony, right? Again, this is not intended to be an ad by any stretch of the imagination, but I am getting a lot of information up front, and this is stuff that I would have normally pulled out manually each time, right, by doing a copy and paste or using my Word Counter Plus plugin, which if you don't have Word Counter Plus as a plugin, that's something that you should definitely check out. And I'm getting a ton of this information, right? The top single terms. This is giving me how many times those single terms are being used. I'm getting the organic visibility on each page. And you can see, too, that the traffic, the link analysis, we're getting all of this information from a number of different sources, and it's being aggregated. And I can go in here, like, say, Ahrefs, which is the tool that I use, and get even more detailed information from there if I want, right? And again, we have the external links that are showing up from this particular result. So if I wanted to say, this Twitter link, right, I might be able to look at that, or e-consultancy, this is a great one. I can also look at this, and I sometimes do, not always because it does take time, but I can look at this and go, hey, is their research up to date? No. Maybe if I have more up-to-date research, I can do a little bit better, right? And that's really where that meta-analysis starts to come from there. And now with this, right, I can also look at the different images that are showing up in the top search results for Google, right? And I can also look at if there are any videos that are showing up in the search results, right? And if I go back over to competitors, it will also show me, I think, I can't find it right now, but it will also show me the number of images, or the images that are showing up in this particular, on this particular result. Of course, I can't find it because I'm trying to show you, but it's definitely in there, and I've seen it, and it's awesome. Oh, there you go, competitor images analysis. So if I look here like NetSuite, I can see how many images they're using, what those images are, and if they're valuable or not, right? And I might want to do my own version of that later on down the road if I have the opportunity to do that, okay? So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to start looking at any questions, right? I'm going to pull this up. Let's see. So Mega says, I get lost in research. I want to understand how to stop how to stop and when to stop. So there's definitely an opportunity for analysis paralysis in here. And I think the major goal is to stop when you feel like you have enough to really answer that question, right? That intent. It's easy to go overboard, but I think that think about the time where you have diminishing returns, right? Like at what point are you like, oh, okay, I have everything I need to know. Sabrina says, do you use any SEO research tools? Yep, that's what I just showed off. Try to stop when I think I'm meandering away at the core of a specific subheading. Also questions like, do we already cover this in another blog? Yeah, I think that's perfect. Hope we get a copy of your template for inspiration. Maybe I'll show that off. Why not? And what's tripping you up on your research process, this is Ariana, is how to find rich data sources, tips on aggregating research to produce original insights rather than SERP regurgitated content. When we get into, when I wrote for Conversion XL, this is when I did a lot of my own writing. So years ago, what I would do as I'm writing a piece is keep asking myself why. So I think about it from what's the behavior that we're talking about, right? So 23% of people in X and Y Z study said that if we took it to customer lifetime value, 23% of the people we surveyed said that they do not actually calculate customer lifetime value. Okay, why? So I might do some research that is independent of customer lifetime value and say like, why is that? So turns out that 70% of executives say that they don't have time because of all the menial tasks that they're doing, right? Okay, why is that? Because they have limited budgets that make it so they have to do a lot more time on their own. So when I think about research as far as what goes into the body of a piece itself, I'm looking at the behavior that I'm talking about and then trying to find additional research that supports that behavior, but it's not regurgitated from the research that's being shown for all of the other results, right? This gives me a really solid idea when I write of, the behavior. Why does this behavior exist, right? I think what a lot of us will do is throw stats at the wall and say, hey, contextualize this on your own. And what I try to do is if I see a stat, right, I'll look at that stat and then go, what's the behavior behind that? Or what's the behavioral analysis or psychology behind that? Or, why is this? And then try to do research from there that says, this is why it is. I'll give you another example. So another example of this might be, I wrote a post a long time ago that was along the lines of why product photography is important, right? And that very well could have been a subject that was like, product photography is important because people want to see the thing, right? But the research I found was along the lines of product photography is important because if you can show like the texture of a thing, right, that can help people imagine it on their own, which then led to research that found, well, why is that? Okay, cool. There's actually a psychological study that found that there are mirror neurons that will simulate in your brain a lighter version of what it's like to hold something. Okay, cool. Take that a step further. Now, there's another research piece that said that it's called the mere touch effect on ownership, right? And what it found, and this is why it's actually illegal in some cases for somebody to hand you something in a store when you're shopping, is that you feel like when you are holding something, you feel like there is some perceived ownership of that thing, right? So start to connect the dots on this. If you can see the texture and there's some part of your brain that is saying, oh, that's kind of interesting, you can get this tactile effect on it. There's another thing that says if you have a tactile thing in your hand, then you might be able to gather that you might have a little bit more ownership of that in your brain, right? Interesting stuff for e-commerce. And that's kind of how I'm looking at the research process of, look at the information and then look at why. Cool. Let's see. I hope that helps. Ariana. Please let me know. Because I just kind of went off on a small tangent there, right? So another thing that I'm doing, and this is newer to the process, is using ChatGPT. How can we have these conversations without talking about ChatGPT and AI nowadays, right? So one of the things that I'll do, because a lot of us will say, hey, talk to customers, right? Find out from customers what it is that they want to have, talk to readers, and find out their real problems, right? We don't always have time to do that. But what I found with a lot of the language models that are happening out there, GPT is a really excellent version of this, is I will tell it, hey, you are visitor GPT, right? Your job is to tell me the intent behind why someone might be searching for a key phrase, blah, 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 right? You'll provide me with 5 reasons why someone might be searching and 5 circumstances behind that search. I will provide the job title and company size and stage to help you better get into character. And then we'll role play and answer your questions, right? So in this case, and I'll also tell it, and this is just for any command that you're giving GPT, ask it to type ... to confirm they understand, right? ... In this case, I'll tell it, you are a senior sales manager at a startup making $5 million per year. The company's goal is to double the revenue. Why might you be searching for the phrase customer lifetime value? Now, what's really cool about this is it will tell me, as a senior sales manager, these are the reasons I might be searching for the phrase customer lifetime value: to better understand the long-term profitability, to redefine the sales strategy by targeting high-value customers, to improve retention and loyalty programs, to set more accurate targets and KPIs, to evaluate the effectiveness of current marketing, right? Really, really interesting stuff. Stuff I might not have thought of if I was just doing a high-level analysis from Google and looking at all the different results that were out there. This gives me a little bit more tangibility to why these search results, or to why somebody might be looking for this thing. And then 5 circumstances the search might be, right? Companies reevaluating its sales strategy. The sales team has been struggling to meet revenue targets. Companies considering implementing a new CRM. The startup is preparing for a new round of funding, or the senior sales manager is attending a conference, right? Now from here, and I didn't do this because it would have taken forever, but from here, I might look at it and say, okay, well, let's dig into the company reevaluating its sales strategy, right? And start asking it questions and really have a conversation with it, which will give me a lot of information on why this search result exists. All of that information is going to go into my writing process to help evaluate that, right? Does this directly address anything that's in a subheader or anything I can find from looking at anyone else's outline? No, probably not. But it does give me the opportunity to flesh out the reasons why somebody might be searching for this, which adds life and breathes life into each individual piece, because it helps me understand why somebody is looking for this thing, and not just give them the what, but also help contextualize some of the information that I'm giving them. And I think I have to believe that that's part of the reason how the stuff that I've written and the teams that I've run, how the stuff they've written has given a lot more life and value to, and I hate the word value because it sounds so trite, but give more value to the reader on the other side, because they are able to identify themselves in these pieces, so they can bring that to, it brings it to life. That's ultimately it. It just brings it to life, right? And that's why I've been using GPT for that. If we were to have this conversation 6 months ago, this would not have been a thing. And as these AI models get even better, the better prompts that you're giving it for this, the better your role play scenarios could be. And I've had 20-minute conversations with AIs before, just to do that, right? Now, does it all make it in? No, but it does give me enough information to guide the research. It does give me more information to create better content, just in general. Because the goal at the end of the day, like I said before, is to get somebody opening 15 tabs and be late for their next meeting. We can't do that if we're just talking about the high level stuff, right? If we're just talking about the thing, if you're if you're only talking about the thing instead of what that thing means, you're not going anywhere, right? So that's why I have these conversations. It does not show up in the brief, but it does inform the writing that's involved. One more thing I want to show you, and then we'll just go straight to Q&A, is I'll show you what I do in Airtable. Now, I'll take a lot of this information up front if we're looking at the Airtable. A lot of this research I'll do up front in Airtable, or when I do the research, I'll put it in Airtable. And this is just so I have an easier to find record of this information. It's all up front, and anybody who's working on my team can see this if they wanted to and get an additional context behind it. Now, anybody who knows me even just slightly a little bit, I'm also a huge automation fan. So the brief that I gave you here, right, this is not necessarily, I don't actually fill this brief out. I have an automation that goes here, right, and I'll show you my Zapier, where I have a number of different things happening here. So in this case, it's a new record on Airtable. In the table, the main operating base, when the view is brief created, it will do a number of things. So in this case, these are probably inefficient ways. There are probably better ways to do this, but I'm stripping out a bunch of junk code, and then I will have Zapier create a folder in Google Drive to help me keep all this stuff organized. So in this case, it's my Google Drive. It's in the primary folder, the glossary project, and then it will create a new folder and keep everything organized for each individual piece that's created. The next thing, and this is my favorite part here, is if you are using Zapier, they have the ability to integrate with the OpenAI GPT-3 and DALL-E model. And what I'll do is I'll send a prompt to it. And that prompt is, right here, write an outline for an article about, and then the automation says whatever the project name is in Airtable, right? I don't really mess around with the temperature or the maximum length. I know what they mean, but not enough to really give any idea of to make it happen. So, and then I'll say create a document from the template in Google Docs. So again, I'm not actually creating these templates one-on-one. I'm putting the information in Airtable, and the document is created, organized, filed, and there are a lot of this other stuff that I'm showing you that's already automatically being created, right? And it will create all of that, right? It will put in there the project name, when it was created, content type, right? Everything that I was showing you before, this is all automatically generated from Zapier. So the stuff that I put in Airtable, this shows up in Zapier, and it goes through Zapier and then creates it. And then it will update the record, and then it will it will attach the document back into the record. So all I do, again, is create the information in Airtable, and then the document's created, filed, organized, and then reattached over to this piece. Now, here's where this gets fun, right? I'm going to just pull this up in a second here. The GPT-3, this is where that automatic document or the automatic outline shows up. I try to specify these are AI generated, use it as a guideline, but do not feel beholden to it. This gives me just a nice guideline, and all I have to do is create the thing. I just have to create the piece in Airtable, and then all this other stuff is automatically generated for me. So I might use this to just give me an idea, right? This is stuff that I've done on my own. The thing that's really cool about Content Harmony is they're doing a lot of this. It's AI generated with the outline that's showing up there. I might start incorporating that a little bit more. We'll see. I've only started to play with that part of that tool. But that's really it. That's a lot of it. That's a ton of it, folks. So I'm going to see if let's take some time to just go through some of the questions here, the comments that have been going on. So let's see. So glad to be here. Open it up. Love both of these examples. Cool. Is it advisable to pull quotes from podcast and YouTube Q&A sessions? Yes, especially if it's this show, right? I do think it's actually really, I mean, all kidding aside though, yes, absolutely. And if you have the ability to clip different pieces from YouTube in particular, I know that YouTubers would be incredibly grateful for that. And then the one tip that I would give for that in particular is that if you're unable to create a clip of just what's in the episode and what you're trying to show there for the quote, then do a time-stamped link to that. So in Google, you can, or not in Google, in YouTube, you can say link from this particular timestamp, right? Just put that link in there, so then your reader, if they do decide to go over there, they can just go straight to that. You can also embed, when you embed a piece, you can also have it start from a specific timestamp. So the reader does not necessarily have to go through the entire thing. You can bring them straight into the context. Let's see. Eric says there's also a built-in Airtable Google Docs integration, but it doesn't let you do some of the legendary or intermediary steps in GPT and some of the formatting. Yes, I came up with this part of the process before they did that. So I haven't experimented with that yet, but there is definitely a lot that they can do now native to the platform that wasn't able to be done before. So I'll have to play around with that a little bit more just to see what's possible. But yeah, I think that's really cool, and I'm glad that they were able to do that. So that's it. That's all I got. That's my entire process. That took 36 minutes here. Yeah, if there are any other questions about the process, or I would actually love to hear a little bit about what some of you are doing that I may have missed in here, because this is my process, but it's not necessarily the end-all be-all. This is just a step. And I've actually learned a lot from the people who have been on the show that I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more. So anyone who has watched Ronnie Higgins' episode, for example, he does a lot of that more emotional stuff up front. What do you want the reader to get out of this by the time they are done with the piece, right? I think that's really cool. Alora Weaver, she was on last week, I want to say. She's got this excellent checklist with a lot of the different steps it needs to take to be published, right? Eric says, how do you integrate with the company? I suspect that means how do I work with different stakeholders within the org? So using Airtable, I actually will say we have different steps in the process, right? So in my case, it would be, my brief review. I'll have the brief. I'll create the brief, which, again, I'm not really a huge fan of creating briefs. But, okay. So there are two things. I'll answer my first interpretation of the question and then the actual question here. I will have the different steps mapped to different people, different stakeholders, and they will get notified only when it's their turn in the process. So if there's a brief that's ready for review, I'll have that sent over to them. I've got the native Slack integration done, so they will get an automatic notification that says, hey, this brief is ready for you to review. And then that part of the process, it will say, leave any notes or feedback that, ways that things that you would want to see out of this, right? I want to give you a complete picture of what this piece is going to be about. If there are any product mentions or anything like that, this would be the time to say, here's how we would want to integrate these different aspects of that piece inside the article, right? So a product mention, for example, you say, hey, this would be a really solid way to frame this. To answer your actual question here, how do you integrate the company's viewpoint into a brief? Or for a product-led company, for example, what do you do to educate the reader on the connection between the product and the piece? This is really great, and it's a lot of upfront work with the client itself. In some cases, that would be the wow, there's lots of comments coming in. So in some cases, that's just a lot of conversation as the content lead to find out what that point of view is, and then trying to communicate that or contextualize it on a case-by-case basis. In in a lot of times, and I haven't done this with my most recent client, but I will also create a content code that uses the research that I found. When I start an engagement, I'll probably read 200 to 300 pieces of content from competitors, people that are showing up in the search results. I'll read as many emails as possible. I'll watch as many webinars as possible. I'll consume as many YouTube things as possible. And it's to help me get an understanding of the positioning that we want to take and what the overall soul of what it is that we're creating. When it comes to an individual piece, that's just a lot of conversation that's happening up front, right? What is our perspective on this particular topic, right? If we're doing something as simple as a what is or how to, right, type article, which we're all familiar with writing, we've done them all probably a gajillion times at this point. The question would then be like, how do we do it our way, right? Not just how to do it, but how do we do it our way? Or why such and such things matters? Why does it matter to us the way that it matters? And these are questions that just have to be asked. These are really soft questions, but it really helps get a solid idea of if you're able to just have these conversations of what is our stance. Your ability to ask the right questions, I think, is the thing that helps get that context out. If you're not able to have those conversations, you have to learn how to draw those out from the client if you're doing freelance work, or from your internal stakeholders if you're working in-house, because this is stuff a lot of people don't think about, but it's also something where it's highly important, especially if you're creating content or leading a blog, because it's the most frequently published arm of any company. So being at the tip of the spear, you have to also emphasize, again, this is all soft skill stuff, but you have to emphasize how important it is to not just talk about the topic, but to also inject some of those opinions and that perspective. Okay, so Eric says, Eric asked an important question above. Hopefully the delay here, I've answered the question, because there is a slight delay between when I see the questions come in or the comments and when I go out. So hopefully that covered it. Would love to hear how your process changes, if at all, for content refreshes. Not really. I would say that content refreshes are actually fairly lightweight, because a lot of this work has been done up front. But I think the major thing that I'm trying to look at when I do refreshes is what's the new research that's going out. What are some of the more recent trends that need to happen? And it's gonna vary, Zachary, on what it is. In some cases, refreshing is as simple as changing the date of the publish date. In other cases, yeah, things are completely out of date and we need to retool it from the ground up. And sometimes it's just this middle ground. So what's going on out there? If you're tracking the search results and you're seeing, a lot of volatility with your competitors that are your search competitors specifically, then that might be something where, hey, what's being up to date or what's being updated. But in a lot of cases, everybody's just changing their publish date. So that might be the case. But there's definitely a continuum. And in some cases, I think it's a lightweight version of what I'm showing here, or a fully new version, doing it from the ground up, depending on whatever that particular topic is. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot of talking. I went through that all very quickly. If there are any more questions, or you would like to talk about your own stuff in here, I would love to hear that, because we do have a little bit of extra time. If not, then this would be a great opportunity to say, if you are on the website right now, please subscribe. We are doing these shows are generally once a week. And we have exclusive bonuses that are going out to subscribers only. One of the major things that we're doing, that we just did, and we're going to be doing it again pretty soon here, is there is a database that we have built of all of the content that's been created, or edited rather, by the guests that we've had on the show. That is for subscribers only. So if you would like to get the database of all of the content that's been edited from folks like Margaret Jones from Airtable, Melissa Eisenberg from DocuSign, Alora Weaver of Writer.com, and a number of other folks, right? We've got close to 50 episodes that have gone out live. Please subscribe so you can get that database. Also, if you really liked what I was showing off in Content Harmony here, if you sign up through my link, which you'll find right there, you can get 2 months of free bonus credits with a paid plan. So very cool stuff that's happening over there. They're constantly improving on the tool. Kane, I don't see you in the audience right now, but if you are in the audience, it would be great if you could give a shout out. They have a really great deal too. You can do 10 credits for $10, or if you do a demo with them, you actually can trial the product for free, which is, I think that's absolutely brilliant. So cool. Second on this question about research in a new niche. Oh, I didn't see that before. So in a new niche, can you... thanks, Zachary. So let's see. I got to scroll up here and find the actual question. I'm not. If you're in a new niche, can you repost the question here? I'm not finding it. Oh, okay. So repost the question, Amna, and I'll answer that there. And Dan says, how do you approach writing anchor text? That is a great question. So first of all, take a study at curiosity gaps, right? Take a look at, like, really research curiosity gaps in general. Because what you want that link to be, right? An anchor text can be, sometimes I'll look at it as here's the key phrase. Sometimes I'll look at it as a full sentence, right? The question that we have to ask is, does this piece of anchor text, are we trying to get someone to take action on it, right? And if you are trying to get someone to take action on it, you're looking at the curiosity gap that you want to open up with that. And what I mean by that is it's almost a similar set of guidelines to getting somebody to click on a social media result or a search result, right? Just take a look at the curiosity gaps. I don't know if I can explain that very well right here in this context, but the idea is if you want somebody to be taking action, then think about what you can use surrounding that text to show that it is a front door to the next thing that you want them to read. Because those anchor texts, especially if you're looking at search results and those curiosity gaps that are opening up, that is the difference between somebody going deeper and being late to their next meeting versus getting what they need and bouncing off and never, not even knowing you or who they just read something from. And I want you to think about this for a second too. What was the last blog post that you read? Can you think of the website of the last blog post that you read? Or was it that you got the information and that was that, right? We have to think about what we can do to drive people deeper into our blogs and into our content every single time. If we're just writing about the thing that we're writing about, we're in trouble. So what can we do to open up those curiosity gaps surrounding the anchor text and surrounding those links so we can get people clicking in and going a little bit deeper? All right, research depends on expertise. If you start working in a new niche, then how will you do research? That's a great question. I've been working in the same space for a very long time. But I would say it's very similar to what I was talking about before, where it's consume as much as possible. So what I look at, and this was actually relevant when I was at Shopify because I knew very, very little about e-commerce at the time. I don't look at it on a case-by-case basis, right? I would never, ever look at this on like, hey, I'm writing this article in this subject that I have no experience in whatsoever. What I'm looking at are search competitors for the different phrases that we're trying to go after. This is why I read, a ton up front. I'm looking at industry-adjacent news, right? So in the e-commerce space in particular, it's like, how can I look at what's being said by companies like Magento and Demandware and BigCommerce? Shout out to Tracy Wallace. and what are these people saying in this space? And then taking that a step further out, what's the industry news saying in these areas? And really get that stuff into your bones. Like, this will take time, right? But it's just like anything else where even if you're starting at ground zero, there is a ton of information out there, and just read a ton and get it into your bones, because eventually if you make that your life, right? And I mean this genuinely, as you make it your life, that is all you consume for media for a period of time. That's where you can start to not establish expertise, because if you're a freelancer, this is not like an offensive thing I'm trying to say, but if we're freelancing, we're kind of professional tourists, right? We don't necessarily always have that hands-on experience with the thing that we're talking about, but we can start to learn just through consuming as much as possible. We can start to learn who your key players are. We can start to learn what the original research might be. We can start to learn the tools that are out there, and we want to understand as much as possible just what's happening in the space. And the only way to do that is absorb yourself, or submerge yourself. There we go. Submerge yourself into that space that you're in, and then see if you can start to contextualize certain things. But if you're looking at this just on a piece-by-piece basis, that's going to be really, really difficult. You'll have a hard time with that. So the goal is to start to understand what's happening in that space and happening now. One of the other things that I might do, though, is I've got automation set up, and automation is a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. But I have an automation set up where I will search for, there are a couple different ways to do this, but I will search for a key phrase, and I will have them automatically added to a list on Twitter, where I can see what they're saying, not only for that key phrase, but it will automatically follow or add people who are using that phrase to a list, so I can see all of the other things that person might be saying, right? I can submerge myself, into that particular, those results. The other thing that I do, and I do this with any new engagement, is I'll look at the popular sites within a particular space, right? And I'll enter these into a automation that will, again, it will add people to a Twitter list, and I will see everything that those people are tweeting beyond what they're actually sharing. So, for example, I've got one that anybody who shares a link from Content Marketing Institute, I can see all of the other things that those people are sharing, so I can get an idea of what the conversation is that's happening beyond them just sharing the one thing. I think that part's really important, because that gives you an idea of the language that you could be using, or the way to package your information in a way that is both familiar but unique. So I hope that answers the question. I think that's the overall thing, is to just put yourself into that space as much as possible, so all of that information gets into your bones. And yeah, Zachary says the database is legit. That makes me very happy to hear. So we've got a few minutes left here. If there are any more questions, feel free to bring them on. If not, then we will wrap it up, and I will say have a wonderful rest of the day. So, see what we got here. All right. I guess that will be it. So again, if you are not currently a subscriber, go to thecontentstudio.com/thecuttingroom. That will, you can sign up via email. You will get access to the content database, and that will be something that can really help you. You can see inside the minds of some really high-level, industry-leading content marketers and how they think about content. Oh, we do have one more question from Ariana. Where do you factor image infographic creation into your process. On the CXL blog, some complex topics are guided like a key illustration or a graph. Do you loop in a designer at the beginning? Sometimes. So it depends on what the lead time on this particular piece is going to be. I will talk to designers early on in the process, say, hey, we're thinking about this particular, doing a subject on this particular, or doing a infographic on this particular subject. We don't have the research yet, but I would like for you to include it into your next sprint, because a lot of designers will operate on sprints. And then from there, at least they're informed. And then through the automation process, I've actually done this plenty of times, I will have them looped in when the first draft of the article comes through, right? Because once I have that draft of that article, that usually gives them enough information to at least extract data that needs to be done from that. I will also, as the editor, extract that information and say, here's how we should have it structured. But the idea is, yes, let's talk to them about it early on. Let's have them get the information at the same time we do as editors. When the draft comes in for review, they can be automatically notified, and then let's collaborate on that in time, either for the release of the blog post, right? And sometimes that's going to be, you got to understand what your timelines are on your production schedule. In some cases, it's 3 days. You might be able to publish something shortly after the draft has been reviewed. In some cases, it's 6 weeks. So the idea is less about when do you bring the person in, but understanding the period of time that it would take for that person to get that piece out live. So I would say, yes, upfront, when the draft comes in, and then when you have the time to also extract the information from that draft to give them what they need. Something that's really helpful for designers is if you are also able to provide your own wireframe, or use a Figma, or something of that nature. And you don't necessarily have to design it for them. That's not your job or anything like that. But if you can give them an idea of what the composition of a particular thing might be, Canva is another really great tool for this. That's going to be really helpful and speed up their process. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be, all of it, but anything that you can give up front to help speed up their process, the better, because that just makes everybody happy. Mr. Blue Gamer comes in here and says, hey there. If you are into gaming, by the way, check out Mr. Blue Gamer's channel. That is my son. He is homesick today from school, but excellent channel. He's doing some really cool stuff over there. Highly recommend you check him out. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for right now. I will be sending out the replay for this. We'll be taking the show notes. We'll be sending out the replay for this on Friday. Again, if you are a subscriber, you will get all the information in the replay. I will also send out a template of this template that I'm using for the brief process. So you can only get that as a subscriber. And if you are not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, we are just about to cross 1,000 subscribers, which is very exciting. If you are not currently subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that. And yeah, that's really it. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of the week.